Officer of Back4App. And this is our second live event. And the topic for today's event is based on your popular choice, building real-time applications. Before starting the live event, I would like to ask Alison, who is one of the founders of Back4App, to speak a few words about our Back4App's family. So, Alison, could you please take over?
Yeah, thank you for the intro, Portia. That's great. Hello, as some of you may know, I'm Alison. I'm one of the Back4App co-founders. And first of all, I would like to thank you all for attending this webinar. And I know that's hard to find time, and I really appreciate you find some time to see what we have prepared for you today. Back4App have started as a passion project and turned it into an entity that me, George, and Davi could only dream of. Those dreams are growing big, and as more developers like you continue to use our platform to build more innovative apps. And I have just a few words to share. I will not take you more time. So Portia, you can conduct the event for today, right?
Yes. The presenter of today's event is Alex, who is also the popular face of our YouTube channel. He's the architect of our platform. Before we get started, I would like to also be clear that if you have any questions, you can please insert them in the Q&A tab in the control panel. Alex and our customer success officer, Charles Ramos, would be answering them, while Alex would be showcasing the use case for our real-time application topic. We also have a surprise giveaway at the end of this event. So please stay tuned till the end so that we can reveal it. Thank you. And Alex, you can take it over.
All right, Portia, thank you so much for the introduction. Can you guys hear me well? Oh, thank you, Cesar. Well, it's awesome to see so many people joining these webinars, guys. It makes me really, really happy to see how much interested we can rise with all of you joining. It's just awesome to have you all aboard. So thank you so much for joining and for participating. I prepared some basic content on real time because real time is so awesome and I don't see many people using it. So today we'll cover the basics. I have prepared some more content. If you want to go deeper, we can have another webinar. So just let us know here on the chat. If you want to go deeper after this session, we can schedule another one and see everything in a deeper level. So I would also like to invite you, everyone, if you are not subscribed into our YouTube channel, we publish new content every single day. So there is a lot of good content in there. Perhaps some questions you might have are already covered in there. So please make sure you're already subscribed. And well, let's start. So let me share my screen with you guys. There you go. Please tell me if you can see my screen. All right. Thank you, Hayani, Cesar, and Stephen. All right. So this is what you're seeing right now is my dashboard for a new app I just created. So when you first create your apps, it will look very similar to this. And most people, when they try to create an app and make queries and retrieve results, they come from a quite old background where they have to execute a query every time to see if there is new records that match that query. And there's nothing wrong with it, but you can achieve a much more responsive behavior of your app if you use real time, or what we call in Back4App is live queries. So in a very old approach, every time you need to do something, I'm talking in the start of the computing at all. So you had to query the server every time, every now and then, to see if there are new records. So is there a record for me? And the server will say no. Is there a record for me now? No. Is there a record for me now? No. And then at some point, some record will be created, and is there a record for me? Yes, here is the record. And this, while it works, it makes very difficult for the front-end developer to create a responsive front end, because you have to keep querying the server all the time. This makes a lot of overload on the server side, and it's quite difficult to implement software like that. So then something called WebSockets showed up. It keeps a connection between the front end and the back end. And every time the back end has something new, instead of the front end querying the back end, the back end will instead tell the front end, hey, I have something new for you. And then you can execute that code. And in Back4App, as I said, we call that live queries. So in order to use that, you have to first configure your app. So you have to go to App Settings, Server Settings, and scroll down, and you find Server URL and Live Query. You click Settings, and the first thing you have to do is to enable your Back4App subdomain, because we will be using this value into our code. So you have to activate this. It will suggest a subdomain name for you, but this subdomain name must be unique among all the Back4App users. So I had to try a few values in here until I found one that works for me. So I ended up with livequeries123.b4a.io. If you're lucky, you can find a subdomain that has the exact name of your app. But if it's already taken by another user, you might have to try a few combinations until you see something that works. But you don't have to worry about it, because this will only run on the front end, but not visible to your users. So it doesn't matter actually the subdomain name for your end user. They will never see this value coming, right? So with that checked and your subdomain created, we can start creating a new class. So here on the database, I'm going to create a new class, call this class person, and you can choose if it's a protected class and you have to authenticate every time you want to operate its records, or a public class and then you have full access to it without any authentication. Usually for sensitive data, you want to choose protected. But today, as we don't want to keep authenticating every time I change code, I'll create it as public. So you have to decide by yourself. It makes sense to have it as public or protected. Usually protected is the choice to be done. But again, for the example of today, I'm creating public so we don't have to keep authenticating. So I click Create Class, and my new person class showed up there. And we can start adding some properties to it. So I'm going to add a new column here. This will be a string, and I'm going to call it name. So add column, and my name as a string showed up there. And a very common use for live queries or real time is to track the user position. Imagine a software like Uber, where you have to continuously track the position of the driver or the position of the user. So we have a special data type for that we call geopoints. So we're going to create a new geopoint. Scroll down, so we have geopoint here, and I'm going to call that location. Add column, And my geopoint as location, my location as geopoint showed up there, and I can start adding data to my class. So I decided to write the code today in JavaScript because it's the most popular language in the world, but the approach is the exact same for any language that you choose. You subscribe to the events of the class that you want to monitor, and pretty much else is done automatically for you. So now that I created the person class, I have to go back to my live query settings and allow the WebSockets connection to it. So back to app settings, server settings. I'm going to server URL and live query. And in here, we can activate live query. It will show me all the classes that I can subscribe to. At this point, I only have the person class that I created and the user class that is automatically created by our framework. So I'm going to subscribe to the person class only. I can subscribe to multiple classes if I want, and click save. And now this class is ready for real-time data delivery. So let's go to our Visual Studio and start working some code. So here I have a completely open, completely empty Visual Studio project. We got some question. All right. So the first thing I have to do is to install the SDK. So I'm using Node.js today, so I'll be using parse node. So npm install parse. Hit enter. This takes a couple of seconds because it's downloading and installing everything for me. As you can see here, it already created my package lock file, my package.json file, and my node modules. And I'm going to create a new file in here that I'm going to save as index.js. Save. And my index.js file shows up there. So we can now start coding. So the very first thing I have to do is to instantiate the SDK that we just installed. We do that by typing const parse equals require, and then passing in the SDK, so parse/node. So now I have access to the whole universe of features that our SDK provides. I'm going to save this, and then we have to initialize this so it can connect to our app that we just created. So parse.initialize, and this takes 2 or 3 parameters. The first one is the app ID that we're going to retrieve from our dashboard in here. So app settings, security and keys, and here is our app ID. I'm going to paste it in there. The second parameter is our JavaScript key, which is also in here. So I'm going to copy this value and paste it in there. The third parameter is optional. It is our master key, and you want to protect your master key as much as possible. So don't deliver your master key along with your app. There are a few functions that you need the master key in order to operate, but that is reserved for the back end especially. If you deliver the master key to the front end, you allow the end user to retrieve it somehow, perhaps doing some reverse engineering, and that can compromise all your other keys. So never deliver your master key to the front end, all right? So I'm going to leave it like this, only the app ID and the JavaScript key. Then we have to point the server URL. This information is also in the dashboard. So I'm going there, server settings, and inside here, the core settings, you have your parse API address. So I'm going to copy this value, and back to Visual Studio, we're going to put parse.server URL equals and a string with that value. This value is the same for all the Back4App apps, so you can pretty much copy and paste from project to project. It doesn't change. The JavaScript key and the app ID, they change from app to app, so you have to keep that updated. And since we are using live queries, there is one more value that we must set that is not usually set on regular apps, which is our live query server URL. So parse dot live query server URL equals, and this is the tricky part. You have to remember that you're connecting to a WebSocket, not to a HTTP call, a regular one. So this will always start with WS instead of HTTPS. And then we are going to get that value that we have on our live query setup. So server settings, let me go back. There you go. So we have here live queries on true3. I'm going to copy this value .b4a.io. So paste it here .b4a.io. And this is pretty much everything that we have to do. Now we are going to operate some asynchronous code. So I'm going to create an empty asynchronous function in here. So async function run. And then I'm going to call this function, so run. So everything that I put in here should be executed. So let's try that. Console.log starting app. Save it, and I'm going to clear my screen and npm node index.js. Hopefully this will print starting app. There you go. So now that we have everything we need to start, we're going to explore the operations that you can subscribe to using live queries. And in order to do that, we have to execute some queries on the classes that we subscribed. So I'm going to create a new query in here. So let query equals new parse.query. And this parse query is going to operate into my person class that I just created. And for now, I'm going to leave it like that. So I will always retrieve all the objects inside the person class. And this is the first important point I want to pass to you guys. Real-time applications keep delivering data all the time. So you want your queries to be very fast, very specific, and retrieve only the data that is needed to. Because imagine this situation. You have a very, very complex class with lots of pointers and relations to other classes, and this ends up into a huge object. And every time you have to subscribe to that class and start listening to its events, all these huge objects will be delivered to the devices. So it's very common to see people creating complex queries that takes minutes to execute, bringing lots of huge objects, and they then complain that the real time is taking a while to run. And it's actually not the best practice to have such complex queries or such complex objects delivered in real time. If you need to deliver complex queries or complex objects in real time, a better approach is to create some cloud code that condensates the information as much as possible, and then you deliver this condensed information using live queries. All right? So inside here, we're going to make a try-catch block where we are going to listen for our first event, which is open. Open means the connection to the server was open. So try catch and my exception. The exception we're going to print out console.log error and my exception.message. And inside here, I'm going to try to subscribe to the query I just created. So let's subscription.
Alex,
Yeah.
Alex, I guess Charles had raised his hand.
Yeah,
So,
could you please increase the font size, Alex?
The font size. Oh, right, sure. Hopefully this Oops, sorry, I did it in the wrong window.
Thank you very much.
Is it better now? Hey, Charles, is it better now?
Yeah, Nelson, is it okay for you now? Yeah, thank you, Alex.
All right. So we're going to use await because this is an asynchronous call. We will try to connect. If not, then we'll have an error and get into our catch block. Then query dot subscribe. So if this works, we should probably see a message and start listening to the events. So let's write our first event in here. Subscription dot on, and it always started like this. My subscription object dot on, and then the event that we are going to listen for. So on open, we're going to arrow function the object to our code, and in here we're going to console.log, and let's put connection open. Hopefully, if you run this, it should connect. Let's try it. There we go, our connection is open. So every time you open a connection, this block of code it will be executed. So this is very useful, for instance, if you have software that runs in a cell phone, because you don't want to really operate the code that is in here if the app is disconnected. Let's imagine this situation. The user enters a tunnel and lost his signal in the cell phone. So the connection is now broken, and makes no sense to execute this code because nothing will be retrieved. So this code will only run once it is open, all right? And this is held automatically from the framework to you. So you don't have to keep listening to the events. You just subscribe to the open event, and every time it connects, it will be executed, all right? This works for all the events that I'm showing today. You don't have to really care about it. You create the code, and it's done for you. Every time it listens to that event, it will get executed automatically. So our first event for the class that we're going to see is create. Create runs every time a new record is created. So subscription on, then we're going to put create. And this will also return a object, the object that was actually created for the event. So object, and we're going to arrow function that as well. So console.log object created. And let's leave it like that for a while so we can just test it, okay? I'm going to cancel this run it again. My connection is open, but no object was created so far. If we go to our dashboard and try to create a new object inside here, so add a row. Alex, and I'm going to click add. You see a object was created, and as I got a object created, I can retrieve information on that object as well. So let's try to retrieve some data from it. Plus object dot get. If you're not used to our framework yet, get is how you read a property from an object. And then you put on the property name that you're looking for. In this case, let's put name. Save. Run it again. And let's now create another object that you're going to call shards. Click add. And we see that the shards object was created. Notice that I didn't have to query anything. I wrote the query once, it was automatically executed. My code was notified from the server that there was a new record, and the object was automatically delivered to me. So this saves a lot of effort on trying to deal with that data. I don't have to execute queries myself. It will always run this automatically and execute the block of code that is inside here. But also, if you notice it, it only retrieved the Charles object because the Alex object was already created. So this executes once per object when it is created. If you need to retrieve more, oh, my camera just failed, but it seems it's back. If you need to retrieve more objects, then you can take action on that, but then you have to do it manually because it will always run automatically for the insertion of a new object inside this class. Our next event will be update. Update happens every time a object is updated inside the database. So as the code is pretty much the same, I'm just going to copy this block, paste it in here, and change the name. So from create to update, object updated, and we also are going to get the name. I'm going to cancel the run it again. The connection is open. Let's create a third object in here called Porsche. Now, once I add it, the object was created as Porsche. And let's add some more details about Porsche. Is here. Let's put is updated. There you go. Now, the updated value showed up here because it was triggered by the update trigger, all right? Then we have a very useful trigger that not many people know about it, which is the enter. So as the code is pretty much the same, we're going to retrieve that, put enter, oops. Save it, and enter works like this. At first, your object would not match the query that you wrote in here. But at some point, this object got updated, and now it would match that query. Then the enter object would be fired. So to illustrate that, let's try to make a new query in here. So query dot equal to name and Alison. Oops, let's put Alison. Now, if you check here, I don't have any Alisons in here, so it doesn't really fire up anything for me because I did not create any user named Alison, and I did not update any user named Alison. So let's see how that behaves. If I cancel this, run it again, let's check something. There we go. Connection is open. And let's try to change Alex to Alison. Object entered. Notice that the object, the trigger fired wasn't update. It was entered because it did not match the query at first, but then it's now matching it. So this is a situation that can save you a lot of code because instead of checking for every single update to see if it matches the new value that you are expecting, you can have a specific trigger watching that specific situation for you. I see someone raise the hand. Alison,
yeah, that's me, Alex. I'd like to tell you that some of the participants are making some questions. If you can please check.
All right. I'm sorry. I got carried away. Let's see it. We have 3 answered. Let's check the answered ones first. Will be there more documentation about parse and Flutter? And what was the response for that? Sure, yes. Is WS the same secure as WSS? Not really. The WSS is the secure layer of WebSockets. You can use WSS as well. And we actually should use WSS. And I have seen a lot of snippet of codes, multiple languages, but Flutter. Yeah, that's actually true. We are always producing new content, and I see Flutter is getting a lot of popularity. So we will take a look on that, Pixel UVW. We'll catch up with Flutter as well. Now let's see some of the open questions. Is there a best practice for storing the keys in an application? And well, yes and no. You should always try to keep your keys into the front end as protected as possible. So you don't really leave it in a text file that anyone could see it, because it makes the life of a potential invader much easier. That said, the framework and the product itself was written in a way that it really doesn't matter if your keys are exposed, because the protection level of the data must be done with ACLs, which translates to access control lists, and to CLPs, which translates to class level permissions. So if you protect your app using ACLs and CLPs, and we have a tutorial on that on our documentation and also on your YouTube channel, so you can go there and watch it. We go in deeper detail on how to protect it. It really doesn't matter if you get your keys exposed. The only key that you should always protect and never publish to the front end is the master key, because with the master key, you can change your other keys, and a attack using that would be very compromising. So always protect your master key at all costs. Try to protect your app ID and keys as much as you can, but the bottom of the topic here is protect your app using users, ACLs, and CLPs, and you're good to go. All right. This is from Dennis Milling. I'm sorry if I spell your name wrong, guys. I'm using my Portuguese accent, all right? So, Manjuanath Reddy. Do you guys support speech to text and NLP? Well, natively we don't, but we do support NPM modules, and there are a lot of products that does this kind of translation from speech to text. So if you're going to operate on the back end, let's say you send the audio to the back end and want to translate to text in there, you can find some products that do it. As I always say, we are one of the only, at least the only I know, cloud providing a solution that allows you to 100% customize your environment. So if you need software installed that do that for you, we can achieve this for you into a dedicated plan. So you can install any tools that you need to achieve what you're trying to achieve. And if you're trying to run it from the front end, then you should look for a SDK that does that on the front end for you, because it's not really the scope of our framework to do this kind of operation. We simplify the cloud operations of your app, not really the text to speak or speak to text. So you can find a SDK that does that on the front end, or a NPM plus a third-party product that you can install in your dedicated server and achieve this functionality. Pixel UVW, difference between WSS and HTTPS, it's just the protocols. So HTTPS is the secure layer of HTTP. WSS is the secure layer of WebSockets. I'm using just WebSockets today, but we do support WSS as well. So if you want to have a encrypted connection, which we always recommend, you should use WSS, okay? Manjunath ready again. Also, their nodes and childs are inline to node collections document. Can also does it support nested collections? I'm just comparing with Firebase. And this is a very valid comparison. Yes, we do support nested collections, but we do it in a different way. All the relation of data inside our product is done by using pointers or relations, depending on the case. We also have very good documentation about it, and also videos on our YouTube channel explaining how to use those. So you can actually have connection between classes, and this also works for live queries. So for instance, if you have a live query executing in one class, you can retrieve data from another class that is connected to. All right. Any other questions? I don't see any other here on Q&A. So let's go back to our code and see if we can go a little deeper in this. And I have a very good example that I coded for you guys. I really hope you stay to the end, because I think it's very cool what you're going to see, and it's very useful if you're going to use real time, especially with geolocation. All right. So we just saw the enter trigger. Now there is the very opposite of enter, which is leave. It is a object that at first matches your query, but then it will not. So once again, I'm going to just copy and paste because there is a lot of similarity between those. We're going to change enter to leave. Didn't put in here left. We're going to clear and run this again. And remember, I'm looking for a name that matches Allison, and I do have one here, right? So this object will soon not match that query anymore. Let's put in here Davi. So it matches the query at first, and then it will stop matching it, all right? If we go back, Davi showed up here. Once again, some of you might be asking yourself, so why I don't use the update for that? It's because inside the update, you would have to create ifs and compare every single possibility that could happen in an update. And this might bring some complexity to your code in the front end. And then you don't really want that. You want everything to be as smooth and as simple as possible. And having the enter and the leave triggers makes it much easier, because you can create as many as you want, and every time an object starts matching or stops matching a query, it will automatically trigger those events for you. And last but not least, we are going to see the delete trigger. Once again, I'm going to copy this, paste it in here. We're going to put delete, and put in here deleted. So as you can see, everything is very, very similar. It's just a matter of copying and pasting everything and just changing the triggers, and it will operate automatically. So I just wrote it wrong here. So once again, it seems my mouse is not clicking the way it should. So let's do it manually. And I'm not really sure the object will be retrieved, because this is going to be after the delete event. So if I leave it like this, it will probably crash, but let's make sure of it, right? Let's delete this event in here. Yes, delete. And as you can see, it didn't work quite as well. Let's try to delete another one, but remove this portion of code here. Oops. Let's try to delete char and see how it goes. Once again, it's not working, probably because I'm looking for a Alison object. Let's remove this. Try it again. Try to delete Portia. And now it's deleted. Let's try again to put the object name so we can just check if that would work or not, retrieving the object. So we will know if it runs before or after the actual delete. So I'm going to cancel this, run it again. Go back here, create a new row. We're going to call this Davi again. Add. So the view was created. Let's see if it retrieves the object data when deleting. There we go. And it actually does. So if you need to take action on the object even after it's deleted, the delete trigger will retrieve the object for you. So now let's create some new code and see this operating on real time, which I think it's really cool. So I'm going to clear this. Push it a little back here. Create a new file. And we're going to call this update. Oops, save. Update geopoint.js because it's JavaScript. And there you go. So we'll be using a lot of the code from the first project. Let me go ahead and copy some of this. So we're going to instantiate. We're going to initialize the same because it's the same application, and the server URL is also the same, but we're not using the live query server URL because this second project won't be using live queries. So I'm just copying this, paste it in here. Save. Let's see if we have any other questions. Will there be support for Kotlin native in future or server-side functions? Actually, no. Let me explain why. On the server side, the whole stack is open source, so we rely on open source products the way it is. And the main product is written in Node.js, so on the server side, all the code must be written in JavaScript, especially Node.js. So you can use NPM modules, you can use pretty much any functionalities of Node.js, but you're limited to Node.js only on the server side, all right? Hopefully this answers your question. And let's try to create some code in here. I created this code and I think it's useful for you guys because a lot of times you need to simulate the movement of a user when you're developing an app. So let's say you're trying to create an app just like Uber, where you want to keep track of the driver's position, and you don't really find very automated code that does that for you. So I created this one that will automate this part of the code, making it much easier for you to debug and to check if your software is actually working. So I created this function named getRandomInRange. This will get a random value between two values and give you a certain number of decimal points, so you can create your latitudes and longitudes and simulate the geopoints that you want, always with valid geopoints. It might once in a while drop you in the middle of the ocean, which is expected. But if you set your limits correctly, it will always hit inland. So this is very useful when you're using a geo-referenced application using our SDKs and framework, especially with real time. So let's start writing this function. So function get random in range. And this will take 3 parameters. From, which is the starting limit of our geopoints, to, which is the ending limit of our geopoints, and fixed, which is the number of decimal points that you want to represent. I always use 3. I think 3 is a good enough compromise. But if you need to get deeper in a more precise location, you can expand this. This is why I created the fixed property in here, so you can choose as many as you want. So this will be just a function, and this will return the result of a formula that will calculate between the start and end values. Okay, so math, oops, at random. So this will get a random point and multiplied by the difference between the to and the from. So we have a end limit and a start limit. So we have to find a point in between those two. So to minus from. And then we have to add the from to it once again. So if the result would end up into a negative space, it will end up to the very beginning, so the from value. So plus from. And all of this we're going to pass to fixed. And then we'll set the number of decimal places that we want, which we'll specify from here. Oops. Fixed. There you go. And there is a catch here. The toFixed method in JavaScript returns a string, and we need it to be a number in order to the SDK to interpret it correctly. So there are a few ways to do that. You can, for instance, cast the values, but I myself prefer the route to just multiply it by 1. If you multiply it by 1, it will understand it's a number and return a number. So this code pretty much alone will generate some random points for you. We're going to test that. And when you're debugging code such as this, you usually want to loop it a few times so you can see the movement. So I'm going to create a function loop here that will run a few times, having a few seconds between the runs, so we can see it working to see if it goes as expected. So function, my loop, this will receive a parameter called I. You can name it what you want. And inside here, we're going to go to set timeout. For this, we will have a function that we're going to call our original function, pretty much any code that you want. So I'm going to leave your code here for a while. And then we're going to make a check if the number of executions is less than the number that I'm passing, then we will run it again. So if minus minus I, which is my counter here, so I'm going to decrease 1 in the counter. If this is true, I'm going to run my loop once again with the variable I updated by this minus minus, so it will run loop again with 1 less in the I value. All this is going to have a timeout of 1 second, so 1000 milliseconds, right? And I'll have to put in here a start value. Let's put it to run like 10 times. So this will run 10 times with 1 second between each time. It will automatically decrease my loop and call it again. And in here, we can put some code. So let's just write some code. So console log, this is working. Clear and node update. Hopefully, this will print this is working every second for 10 times. Let's see if it works. It seems to be working. There we go. So now I'm going to change it a little bit. We're going to connect to this app, find a specific user person object in there and update its location. And here on the index.js, we're going to watch for the update trigger and get that, that updated value, all right? So let's go back to our update geopoint. Let's create our async function run again. And from here, we're going to create a query that will select the user I want. So let query equals new parse query inside my person class. Let's watch for a specific user. Let's find one in there. Do I have one? I don't have any, so let's add a Alex in here. There we go. Let's look for this user. So query dot equal to name and Alex. Now we have to return this result in order to operate it. So let my user equals await, because this is an asynchronous call. I have to call the backend to retrieve my object. Query dot first. It will retrieve the first object that matches the query. So if I have multiple Alexes, the first one to be retrieved is the one that I'm going to update. And now I can use my get random in range to generate my geopoints. So let my longitude equals get random in range, and longitude in a map goes from minus 180 to 180. So I want to get the whole world. So minus 180, 180, and let's put 3 decimal points as a sorry, totally forgot the 3 decimal places into my value. Once again, if you need more precision, you can expand this to as much as you want. And then let my latitude equals get random in range. Oops. And this will go from minus 90. Once again, I'm getting the whole world to 90 and 3 decimal places. And now I have to use this information to create an object that represents a point into the SDK. We call that a geopoint. So const point equals new parse dot geopoint. And in here, we have to pass a JSON object containing the latitude, my latitude, comma, longitude, my longitude. I'm going to save this. And this is pretty much done. Now I'm going to update my user with this geopoint. So my user dot set, what's the name that we use there for location? So location, and my point. And with that done, we can finally save this user. So I'll wait, because saving is also an asynchronous call. My user dot save. Let's just run this and see if it works. From here, I'm going to remove this console and I'm going to put the run method that I just created. Hopefully, we will see the value changing into my location. So it's running. If I come here and start to, as you can see, the location is changing, so it seems to be working. So now let's do something cool. Let's create a new ZSH in here and split the screen like this. Where is it? There we go. So from one ZSH, I'm going to watch for the updated trigger. So I'm also adding here a points and then plus. I'm going to get the longitude and latitude and print it as well. So the object is the property is the location dot longitude plus, and then a let's choose a symbol for this, pipe, plus object.location, and then the latitude. Save this, and if we start npm run, oh sorry, no, that clear, and node index.js, starting app, connection open, and from here we will start updating the object with some new geopoints. So there you go. As you can see, this code here is running. I didn't print anything, but in here you can see my name and the reference geopoint that the second code is changing in real time. So this is pretty much what you have to do in order to retrieve your geopoints updated all the time. You don't have to loop anything on the front end. You just collect the update trigger, check the user, and plot this information on your map, and you're good to go. So this is pretty much what I had for you today, guys. Since my camera died again and restarted again for some reason. But as you can see, delivering data in real time to your front end is very, very, very easy and very, very, very flexible. You can do practically anything that you do running your manual queries, but in real time, which translates in a much better experience for your end user. And it doesn't give you that much more work at all. So I really recommend you try this. All this code will be available in our GitHub page. So please check also our YouTube channel. I'm going to publish this session on YouTube in a few days. And that's pretty much it. I hope you like it. Let's check some questions again. So Manjunat ready again. Most time the use cases comes to geofencing. For beginners, it will be very helpful to share how it works and how to store latitude, longitude of users as a hash if possible. I can create a video for you for that. I don't have the necessary time and the necessary packages that I will be needing to create that right now on the fly. But that's a very good suggestion. I'll do that in a YouTube video and publish perhaps tomorrow. All right. Example, search for hotel in a geofence area. And this is something really, really cool, Manjunath. There is a few options inside our SDKs that covers all this. So we have triggers that does automatically the geofencing part for us. You can, for instance, send a georeferenced square. We will tell if some point is inside or outside that square. You can give us a radius and it will plot a circle, and we can tell if a location is inside of that circle or outside of it automatically as well. And also what we call a geo shape, which is a collection of points that represents a actual shape, and we can tell if a point is inside that shape or outside of it. This is also a very good suggestion for a video. I'm doing that as well. Thank you so much for your questions and for your suggestions. Really good. I'm going to make videos about those too. Let me quickly print this screen really fast so I can start working on it right away. So anyone has any other questions?
Alex, I would like just say that the videos, it's available on our YouTube as we finish.
Oh, good, great.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, guys, and please remember, for everyone who's present, we always answer all the questions on YouTube. So if you have any questions and you don't want, for instance, to go to our support channel on our website, leave a question on any video on YouTube, or perhaps if you want to see some code implemented like Manjunath just did, please leave it on the comment sections down on YouTube. We always answer all the questions. And if your question is relevant for other users, such as these ones are, we will produce a video especially for you. So that's pretty much it. I think we, oh, how to manage data changes in transaction. Can you be more specific, Natalia, please?
Hi, Alex. Actually, this question is from JS. sent on the chat.
All right, sorry. Can you be more specific on transaction? I need to change data in 2 classes. So let's see if I understood it correctly. You want a trigger to fire one class and then change data in another class. Is that what you're saying? Well, if that's what you're trying to do, all you have to remember is that inside the triggers, you can execute pretty much any Node.js code or any code in the language that you're doing your app inside the block. So let's say this specific code that I did today is working on the person class because my subscription is on the query that runs on the person class. But if, let's say if I have another class, let's call it car, and you want to change it every time a new object is created here on the person class, all you have to do is inside here, write the code that changes the car class the way you need it, and it will execute and it will affect other classes as well. And it goes both ways. So if you create a new query that acts on the car and needs to write on the person class, you can do that as well. Does that answer your question? No. So let's wait for the whole question.
Okay, I'd like to, as far as we are like,
it seems Dennis is typing.
yeah.
Wascom email. All right, no problem. Also, that's another good channel for you guys. If you have any questions and you want, for instance, to discuss directly with me or to our support team, you can send an email to alex@backfrapp.com. I usually answer the YouTube channels first, but you will be answered on the email as well. So feel free to write me with any questions or any suggestions that you have. Please create a Slack channel. We do have a Slack channel. Alison, can you please put on the Slack channel invitation?
Yeah, I will share the link, but it's on our support page on our website.
Let me show. Let me show that. Just 1 second.
Yeah.
Where is my browser? So backfrap.com. If you go to support, and here it is, our Slack channel. All you have to do is click this link here and we'll go directly to our Slack channel of developers. We are very active in our Slack channel and it's a great place for you to ask as well. So we always do our best, guys, to answer all your questions. So any questions from very novice questions to very experts question, leave it there. We will help you with anything you need to get your app running in our platform, all right? And I think that's pretty much what we have for today, Alison.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. I think Portia can proceed with our gift announcement and the closing, right, Portia?
Yes, absolutely. So we are offering 1 month of free usage on basic plan for apps created from today by you. By you means all the attendees here present. You have 2 weeks to opt in and use this. And you will need to basically, in order to avail this offer, you would need to basically drop us an email with the app ID of your new app on community@backforapp.com from the same email ID you have used to participate in this event. Okay. Any questions? We are also going to provide this offer in the chat. We'll share it with you.
Okay, question.
Okay, so we are going to put this offer in our Slack channel, and you please send us the name of your app and your app ID that you create from today to our email ID community@back4app.com. And this offer will be valid for 2 weeks. It's a basic plan, free basic plan for 1 month. Okay. Thank you, everyone. If there are any more questions, you can send that to Allison@back4app.com. Alex, do you have anything else to say?
No, guys, just want to thank you so much for joining. Please join the other ones. We are doing many of those this year, so I hope to see you all back. And thank you so much for the support. It really makes me glad that you all are joining and liking the content.
Yeah, I would like to say thank you to everyone. Yeah, that's amazing. I really love it, what you guys are asking and how you guys are using Back4App. I'm really amazed to hear you and hear your questions. Please let us know if you need any help on our side. And thank you and have a great week.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.
Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye. See you next time.
Yeah. See you. Bye-bye, guys.